we're going to talk about some Commander cards we never play.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, BZ, joined by Amber, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. You can join our Patreon. And if you do, not only will the channel be supported directly and the future content will be better, but you will get cool new merch at certain tier levels. So definitely check that out. I think it's a kind of little revamped Patreon action going on.
You will be supporting the Nitpicking Nerds, helping us eat food, because honestly, how else would we eat food without Patreon.com? Helping Amber get some cat food. I had to order it this week because she was so low because we weren't getting enough patrons.
That's it. That was it.
That was it. It wasn't because she had eaten all the rest of the food and I need to get more. It was because we were low on patrons.
Yeah,
so
and
think about that.
If you're trying to buy cards, I'm thinking TCG Player.
TCGplayer.com is the best way to buy cards. Go there. Using our affiliate link in the description below, buy the cards you were going to buy anyway. And guess what, BZ?
Probably supporting the nerds.
Yeah, exactly. Same prices, same cards, but the nerds get supported. Happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today. Let's get into this video.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix of everything. You're going to get a lot of different stuff. This is cards we never play for a bunch of different reasons. And I think this maybe is going to be a good insight into our meta. This is cards we never play. We'll give the reasons we never play them or we almost never play them. But we're not saying that you can't play them.
Yes, and some of these cards are for power reasons. Some of them are for unfun reasons. Some of them are for the amount of time they take. There's a lot of reasons. In fact, we have them broken down in the categories. So let's just hop into it. First one is cards that we consider. Let me reiterate. These are cards we don't play because we consider them bad for one reason or another. They never make our decks because they are bad in our opinion. I don't know. I
think we're good now.
Are we?
No, but we're as good as we can get.
Yeah, so these are cards that we just don't put in our decks because we think there are better options out there. This is my job. I'm a content creator. BZ's a content creator. We're going to tell you cards are bad, and if you play that card, guess what?
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens, and you're not even wrong for playing that card.
Right.
We just think you should probably play something else. It's not as optimal in the slot.
Yes, our meta, actually, is we usually say we build for fun, and we play to win. So cards that don't meet those criteria usually get cut. And part of building for fun doesn't necessarily just mean build whatever you want for wackiness. You're still building to win, but we're actively incorporating fun.
Yeah.
So this is all going to meet those criteria, all these categories.
Yeah. So let's start with the bad cards. Cards that we don't think you're going to have much fun because these cards are underpowered for what you're going to be.
More like play to win. These cards aren't going to win that many games.
Exactly. So first off is Phyrexian Arena. This card is just a very slow draw engine. We actually have been mentioning it more recently. It's down to $2.
No, it was the Phyrexian version was $1.13.
Which is
so close.
That is so awesome. That's why this card is good. I think this card is good on budgets. Decks that are $100 or less are probably going to actually like Phyrexian Arena. But we never really play this card because it hasn't been there yet. And we're talking about this card as it's existed up to this point, which is as a non-budget card, and this card we just don't think is good off of a budget.
Yeah, we always talk about the rate as too slow. You don't get your card back until the next turn, so you have a 3-mana cantrip, but then the next turn you're still at 3-mana divination, but you had to wait 2 turns. The rate doesn't really get great until the late game, and then it's well, what turn did you play this on? Did you play it on turn 3 every time? Because more than likely you didn't. So Phyrexian Arena to me just feels a little too slow. We usually play Night's Whispers and Sign of Bloods or Painful Truths or Stinging Studies over it.
There's a lot of good options. I think this is just so. It's again Phyrexian Arena. I don't think, though I'm listing it in the bad cards, it's not bad because as a generic in a vacuum card it's bad. It's bad because Phyrexian Arena is here and there's 15, 20 above it, even in the budget category, and that's why we're not playing it. Phyrexian Arena is fine, gets the job done. It's a little slow.
Yeah, the definition of a bad card gets a little murky. If there's a card that there's enough better versions that I will probably never play it in any commander deck no matter what, I don't know what to call it. So this bad, it seems like a good shorthand.
Yeah, and just while we're here, because might as well throw it as a card that we don't play because it's bad. Explosive Vegetation. Let me just clarify. When that's a trade binder card because it's good, gets the job done.
Completely functional,
and you should put it in your deck if you don't have other options. But if you're shopping around, if you're shopping for cards, I would say you're never playing this card. If you're building out of your binder, are you ever playing this card? Because you just have so many better versions. There are so many versions of get 2 lands, 4/4 mana with other upside. Don't ever play Explosive Vegetations.
Yeah, we just don't ever play it. We would never recommend it. So As far as trying to improve your deck, I would say bad. It feels pretty sufficient. You may have heard of this card. This is a 6-mana 6/6 with Death Touch Grave Titan. It makes 2 zombies. A lot of people put this in Zombie Tribal, which it is not a zombie, or like Reanimation. Don't really think it's a good reanimation target, or like Tokens. Don't really think it's a good token maker, or they have combos with it. Don't really think it's a good combo card. So I basically just have never played this card and probably will never play it. I don't know even what power level, because we thought back when we were higher power before, we made the change about a year and a half ago, and we were like, oh, now that we're dipping down, not playing infinite mana combos, not playing tutors as much, maybe Grave Titan will get it boosted. Nope.
It doesn't feel that good. It's a super weird card that sits in the space of really, really bad, obviously, in high power combo metas. And I know that it has potential combos, but we will tell you again and again, the combo with Grave Titan that involves Ashnod's Altar and
Nim Deathmantle
is a combo that any creature that makes 2 tokens does. Get it for less mana. Don't bother with Grave Titan. It's not worth it. 6 mana, 10 vanilla power, none of it's trample, none of it's sneaking through, is meh. And without any evasion, this card really is just very bad. And I've played it, and I have it in a commander deck currently. It's constantly, if I was cutting for power every single time, it's always right here. Like, here's the rest of my cards, like power-wise. Like, okay, they're all up here. Grave Titan's like 2 steps below everything. Yeah. And every time I add a new card, I have to take something out of the good pile to keep Grave Titaning because it's so bad.
Yeah. Next, we also have Cultivate and Kodama's Reach. Again, functional Magic cards. They do work. They will put a land on the battlefield and a land in your hand, but we just never play them because we think there's so many better options, especially in your 2-mana slot, and then some of the 4-mana ones like Skyshroud Claim I'd rather have over these. It just doesn't end up making our decks. Like, I have built, since the last time we said we don't play Cultivate, I've probably built like 25 decks, and Cultivate's in 0.
So the interesting thing about these cards is, I think when you're talking purely about spell-based ramp, okay, it's probably like 5th, 6th, 7th. How much spell-based ramp are you actually playing?
Like instant and sorceries, depending on what the deck is, very few.
Exactly, it's very few. So it's like, even you play, we've talked about, your Nature's Lures, your 3 Visits, Farseek, Rampant Growth. All these are really, really good. They're all kind of like in that same area. Then you have your Skyshroud Claim. All cards are playing over it. And then there's Harrow. And then there's things that just get double land drops and stuff like that. And then there's all the creatures, there's all the mana dorks. And suddenly you realize that this list is now a solid 10, 15, 20 cards long.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, again, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, they're not bad Magic cards. They're under our bad Magic card list because the options are so much better. You can put this in your deck. It'll perform, it'll be good, and you will be happy with it a lot of the time. It's just too far down our list to really go too often.
Yeah, I just want to shout out Wild Growth and Utopia Sprawl also pushing it out. So there's 2 more.
There's so many. It's literally like, I think it's somewhere around like 20, especially when you count all the 1-mana mana dorks. Every version of that is
just 9, yeah.
It's just something better than this. And it's like, if you're going down the deep rabbit hole of like actually playing a lot of spell-based things, I think you will get to Cultivate and Kodama's Reach fairly quickly. But who's doing that? It's just not a lot of decks.
Like Calamax or something, maybe? Like some kind of spell slinger copy? Like, I don't know.
I was thinking...
Very few. Like, I understand someone's like, well, my deck does that. I guarantee it's like 0.1% of green decks.
Exactly. It's so far down the line. Next is Chromatic Lantern, and just like Phyrexian, just like Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, this card isn't a bad Magic card. It's just way too far down the line of ramp. And if I have better options, if I'm shopping around, if I'm purchasing cards, it's never going to make my deck.
Yeah, our mana bases, basically, they're about as good as they can get. And that generally doesn't require a Chromatic Lantern. And I don't know how this 3-mana rock you can rely on to fix your mana in a deck of 100 cards. Like, just make your mana base as color heavy as you can. Whether that includes tap lands or not, you could still get there. I think never having to go to this, and we just don't usually play 3-mana rocks unless there's a little bit of something extra. Another card we don't ever really play, Hero's Downfall and Murder. I will go so far as to say that, like, we say bad because we don't think they're good. I think these cards are terrible. Like, I think these cards are just about the most unplayable, type of card for me in Commander. Like 3-mana 1-for-1s that only hit creatures.
I agree with you 100%. These are terrible. I mean, these cards really are bad, and they fall back to the line of like, these ones aren't even just like, there's 20 better than this.
There's like 100.
There's like 40, 50 spells that are legitimately just better than Hero's Downfall. and do the same exact job. I mean, I'm not playing Utter End in any of my decks. Really. I don't like that card very much. It's 10 times better than Hero's Downfall.
Yeah, you don't get like the efficiency really because you're paying 3 mana for a 1/1, and you don't really get the versatility because you're only hitting creature or planeswalker. Planeswalker, honestly, to me is like flavor text on a card. Doesn't really add much to the versatility of it.
And the fact of the matter is, I'd rather be playing Doomblade. I think Doomblade is garbage. I would never put this in a deck. I'd rather be playing Doomblade over my Heroes, Downfalls, and Murders. Just don't touch these cards. 3 mana 1/1 is a terrible rate, especially when you're only getting one important type. Now let's say, we will just flip the script and just mention it right now. We always play Beast Within, Generous Gift, Anguish Dreadmaking, and Void Rend.
You don't get the efficiency, but you get the versatility.
Oh, exactly. Versatility without the mana efficiency is worth it. These have neither.
Yes. So you can play Hero's Downfall. It will destroy a creature. But when you come to us and ask, how do I make this deck better? I will say cut Hero's Downfall 100% of the time. Next, we have green Signets and Talismans in green decks. Unless you're artifact-based, then ignore this and skip ahead 30 seconds. But we just never play these when we have all the Nature's Lures and things we just talked about. I think it's pretty simple and we just can move on, right?
I have one interesting thing that I see all the time. I see green decks in all power levels all over the place playing Arcane Signet. I don't like it personally. I understand it is 2 mana, get your mana back right away. It'll fix you for colors. I don't like it personally. I don't like I'd rather play Farseek, get a tapped land, put it in. I'd rather play Rampant Growth, get a tapped land, put it in. Personally, than put it at risk where a Bane of Progress just blows it up and all of a sudden I'm more behind when I could have just played Rampant Growth.
Moving on to a different style of card. This is I would say a meta call maybe. It's Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast. Lump in any card that hoses only one color, and they're cards that we just don't turn to. I think they're not very interesting. I like being able to play against a broad field. I play against strangers all the time. I have a meta and close people, but I don't go that far, and I don't find that interesting to me, so we just don't play these cards. If the card hits 2 colors, I think it starts to get really interesting and questionable whether you can play it or not. But I just don't think there's a guaranteed enough chance that you're going to play against all these good red cards or all these good blue cards. Even if there's 2 blue players at the table, there still has to be a blue spell that is worth it at the time that you have it and you hold the mana, and I don't know.
So the Pyroblast and Elemental Blast are very powerful spells in the metas where you know blue is coming. It is a necessity when you're blue decks, or even sometimes your blue decks, because these are so mana efficient, to be able to counter and remove things for 1 mana. These are efficient, they're amazing in those kind of metas in CDH.
And they could not be less versatile.
They're very narrow. And that's where the problem comes in. I have seen it time and time again. If your plan is to play this deck outside of a regular play group ever, do not put these in. You know, I've gone to so many cons, so many Magic events, and just sat down, and people will have these in their deck, and they're like, "Oh, there's no blue at this table."
Or you see the late game where they're like, "I don't know, Pyroblast that I guess it's the only blue permanent in play, and it's not anything good."
So I'm just avoiding these at all costs. I never put these in my deck, honestly. I think they are very bad outside of exactly meta calls and very, very high power 9-10 commander.
Yeah, Noxious Survival, similar thing. It's a very high power card. It's very powerful when you can spend 0 mana to then put one of your win conditions or a counterspell or something on top. I don't think this is a card I'd ever really slot into a deck that is not CDH-esque or CDH adjacent. It just doesn't really have synergy with anything. It's kind of just a regrowth, and it's a regrowth variant. So if your deck's not busted, you're not really cheating anything.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be examples. You're definitely, there are people who are sitting chomping at the bit, like Noxious Revival goes in this deck,
Probably.
It does. It definitely goes in some decks. When I'm looking at the general aspects of Commander, I'm not putting this in. This is card disadvantage. This is slow, only good in the late game when you have a lot of choices. It's just not that great overall in most situations. And I want to just play my Eternal Witnesses. Give me the 3 mana version of this. Give me my Balagad Recoveries. Give me the card back to my hand. That is so much better in a game of casual Commander where resources are so big. I don't want to go down a card to get a card back from my graveyard. Put me even when I get that card back.
Yeah, another whole category of cards we don't play is wheels. This is just, for me, and I think Jerry's will reiterate this, in a random game, in a random deck, if you cast a wheel, it hurts your win percentage, giving away cards, being not necessarily the first person to use them for most of the wheels. And we're just personally never going to play like, Nekusar decks where there's 20 wheels in them and that's like the strategy. We're just not going to do that. So outside of that, I think they're basically useless outside of like, sometimes that you have Time Spiral or like Time Twister and you can like do little combos and loops and stuff and maybe in the high powers, but in a random deck, I'm just never playing a wheel.
So wheels are bad 90% of the time. You have to make sure you're the player taking the highest advantage of this and you have tons of ways to use it. That's not most decks. Do not throw Wheel of Fortune, even if you have it, into a random commander deck unless it has a ton of synergy for that deck. Otherwise, you're just helping other players as much as you're helping yourself.
You're giving away more cards than you get. It's going to be net negative as time goes on. So if you're a deck that time won't go on and you're going to end the game right there, perfect. Or if you're a deck that just kind of like shuts them off and stops them from drawing cards, well, great, the game's over. But in the decks where you're like Wheel of Fortune, go, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
All right, this next one I can go over really quickly. Mental Misstep, Phyrexian Mana Blue, counter a 1-drop. There's no reason to put this in any deck that is not CEDH specifically.
And the final bad card that we don't play is Aetherize. I don't like this bounce all attackers. I don't like Comeuppance. I don't even really like Ink Shield all that much, although maybe that's the best version of this. But we're just going to talk about Aetherize. It's really specific. You have to have the creatures that are threats in combat. And I think holding up a 4-mana spell where there might not be a payoff to cast it is pretty rough. There's just a lot of better options in this. And when I can turn to Evacuation for 1 more mana, I don't see the use for it.
I've been blown out by this card more than once. I really have. And I still don't look at it as a card that I'm scared of, that I want to play around, that I need to play around. It's, again, like you said, so much to hope for a very specific thing to happen. If that attack doesn't happen, all of a sudden you've wasted this 4 mana. I'm really low on Aetherize, and it only ever hurts one player. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't like this card. You can find the clips of me on other people's streams getting blown out by this card. I believe Kuro Itsuki, John Jones, who if he was guested on this show, he's blowing me out with it. I'm still going to tell him I think it's a pretty bad card, even though he's blown me out with it.
It's like I would almost guarantee that most of the better versions of this effect would have also blown you out.
All right. It's time to shift gears. Shift those gears because we're off of... BZ has never driven a stick. That is very obvious.
That's how it looks.
Shift straight from bad cards to unfun cards. And most of these cards are very good Magic cards.
Yeah, so we're excluding them for the benefit of our playgroup, basically.
Yes, for the fun of others. Whether we don't like them or playing against them, or someone in our playgroup doesn't like playing against them. It's often not BZ, because BZ is a person who's like, I'll play against anything. BZ kind of has to become the empathetic one and go, what doesn't Joe? What doesn't our friend Eric? What doesn't Ken like to play against?
Yeah, so this is very us specific, but I guarantee you'll overlap with a lot of these. The first two being Stacks and Mass Land Destruction. Almost nobody plays these. We also don't. They kind of can breach the social contract of making sure everybody contributes equally to the game. Everyone's talked about it. Do we need to say anything else?
Yeah, just to mention a few of them. Armageddon is the Mass Land Destruction. It's getting rid of all lands from the game. You can obviously see why that would be an unfun thing. When you don't have the resources to play spells, it's not fun. Stacks can often do the same thing. Things especially big like Stasis are going to basically do what Mass Land Destruction does and just not let anyone contribute to the game. And that's why those are not fun and not played. Next, extra turn spells. These are incredible. I will tell you all day, when you're looking for power and your playgroup has no problem with these, play extra turn spells.
Hard to say no.
I don't even care if your deck has synergy with them.
Yeah.
They're so dumb. Extra turn spells are ridiculous, over the top, some of the best things you can do. The simple fact of the matter is, in 1v1, they're really strong. Mm-hmm. It's already a strong effect to get, especially if you can do anything else on the turn you play the extra turn. In Commander, it's not the same. They're way better. You don't just take a 1 turn away from everyone. So basically, you can look at it this way. When you play an extra turn spell, they skip their next turn. Okay, that's one way to look at it. What if all 3 of your opponents did that? That is so much better than just doing it in 1v1. These cards are stupid. They're over the top. Even the worst, terrible ones that are like 5 or 7 mana play this and then exiles and stuff, amazing spells. They're still incredible.
Yes, but they do hog a lot of the game time, making them tough to play for us. We don't want to make it so that we're playing 80% of the game and our 3 opponents combined are playing 20% of the game. That's just not what we want to do.
And if you think extra turn spells ever come 1 at a time, like if there was only going to be 1 every game, it'd be okay. Whenever 1 comes, a second comes, and a third comes, and then they turn it when it's it back, and they're doing it again, and all of a sudden they've got an infinite loop, and they're taking infinite turns.
Yeah, that's just the power of the turns. Like there's never just one. That you just get to stack so many of them, and have it happen 10% of the time. Like every 10 cards is an extra turn. Rhystic Study and Mystic Remora we don't play. These are obviously amazing cards. Some of the best blue card draw you could ever get. Maybe 2 of the 5 best blue cards in the format. We're just kind of sick of it. They're staples. They're auto includes. They're not particularly interesting to us. That's about it, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of One, they're not fun for others to play against inherently, and they're just super staples. This level of super staple kind of has bored us, where I don't want to put Rhystic Study in my blue deck. You know what I want to do? I want to find a different thing. I want to find something that's interested with my deck that draws those cards.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in it. It's like I've been there, done that, 100 times, and let me find the cool 3-mana draw 3 that because I'm playing this commander.
Yeah, and again, play Rhystic Study, play Mystic Gamora in your deck. They're great. Especially if your play group has no problem with them. We find them boring. Same thing, Consecrated Sphinx just fits in the same exact thing. How many times can you spend 6 mana, pass, and win the game?
Yeah, not
before it gets boring. Because that's what this card does. It's absurd. The power
It's
is
so good.
dumb. And it's draw a minimum 6 on the table, and you know what's going on? I have to dig for answers to this. Oh, how are you going to dig? You're going to draw cards and draw me more cards. This card is...
Thanks.
It's so dumb.
And if it gets cloned, you can just quit, I guess. This game's going to be awful.
Yeah, and that's another reason I don't like putting Consecrated Sphinx in my deck. If you don't know how the clone of this works, you draw... So somebody draws 1, you draw 2. Then the other player gets a choice to draw up to 4 cards.
Then you start in an area where Trade Secrets is basically resolving, and that card's banned.
Yes.
For the exact same reason as what is about to happen, which is you can now decide to draw any number of even cards.
It's literally, you'll draw 4, and then they can draw any number of those cards, and then you'll go, I will draw 8. I'll draw 16. They can go for as long as they want. It's
really silly. We just don't like
so dumb.
that kind of thing. Let's go to Drannith Magistrate and Hushbringer. Sort of like Hate Bears. When we build a lot for synergy, and we like to make sure our decks are working towards a single goal. So a lot of the Hate Bears, they don't do things for you. They stop things from happening to you. So there's not really a lot of excuses to put them in a deck and be like, this synergizes super well. So I just don't end up playing like Drannith Magistrate, Hushbringer. And they do stop things, which is not the best when our opponents want to do things.
Yeah, and I'm just going to reiterate, great Magic cards. I'm not putting these in my deck because I want my opponents to be able to cast their spells, have fun. And if you're in a meta where everyone's trying to do the most powerful things, that's when these cards are actually you should play them, and players shouldn't be mad about them. It's like if everyone's just pushing the power limit, that's when stacks are where you want to be.
Yeah, and we can lump the next 3 into this anticlimactic category. We have Torment of Hailfire, Thassa's Oracle, and Crater of Behemoth, cards that just say, I win right now with just this 1 card, or maybe 1.5 cards. Just, it's kind of like a been there, done that for Torment and Craterhoof for me. I'm not a Thoracle guy myself, and I just would like to find a more synergistic way to win that doesn't feel like, to some people, it invalidated the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because Craterhoof falls into a category. It is the best overrun by about a mile. And it's so interesting because, I don't mind losing to overrun. Overrun I think it is one of the most valid ways to win a game.
Are we talking +3/+3 trample, or any variation of +X trample?
Any variation that's besides Craterhoof.
Okay.
Craterhoof falls into this unique category where you have overrun, you have overwhelming stampede, you have Finale of Devastation. All these, I'm fine losing to every single one of them, and they feel fine. Craterhoof is just on its own level of greatness that it's become miserable, and it's unfun. It's literally 6 creatures. The amount of damage that is absurd, and it's really silly how this card just gets to that point and how good this card actually is. It's weird because I will lose to every other version of this card, and in this version, it's boo.
It very much feels anticlimactic where, there's no math. I just put 11 creatures in play. Here's 100 damage.
Yeah, Torment of the Hellfire, same thing. It's just they did 1 million mana. It's over. I've lost to it 1 million times. I've won with it 1 million times.
What's different about Torment compared to the other 2 is that Torment basically always wins in the late game when you've already had this big slog, and it's a knockout, drag-out fight, and then you're just like, oh, you're dead.
Yeah, it's so annoying. Yeah, Thoracle, I'm just going to give my thoughts on Thoracle.
On to our next mature take. We have Fast Mana. This is another, been there, done that. It was kind of like the arms race. Let's make our decks faster. Let's put combos in our deck. So Fast Mana was one of the first things to go in terms of, let's just try to shift around the playgroup, see where we can have more fun. And I have very much enjoyed not playing against Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox. Every other game, Ancient Tomb can go right in there with the rest.
Yeah, and these cards are, again, all amazing. What they do is they accelerate the game beyond belief, and what you can't do is guarantee each player will have a piece of Fast Mana. Now, if every player is playing with Fast Mana every game, sure, we're just playing a sped-up format. That's cool and interesting. It's different. But that's not what happens. What happens is Soul Ring is in 1 or 2 players' hands every game. Those 2 players take off and run away with the game. When all decks are at an equal power level, and you're sitting there, the deck that has Soul Ring is going to run away to a point of way ahead in the game, and that is the frustrating part. That's why I don't enjoy playing against these cards.
Yeah, if I play against Soul Ring all the time, and I don't play Soul Ring in any of my decks, and it's like, well, you just got to overcome it. Things like Druid of Purification can go a long way, but doesn't stop you from having a dominating position in the first 5 turns.
Yeah, and I don't find that fun personally.
It's like it's been there, done that. It's not a card that synergizes. It's like it's just another. It's like it docks another point off of the 100 cards I get to play. It's like, oh, you're playing Soul Ring.
Yeah, it's like it just It's like I could play a cool fun card, but instead I have Soul Ring. And that's I've loved that I've cut Soul Ring because it lets me build more fun. And like I said, I play against all the time. When we go to cons, we sit down with random people and just play games. So they're gonna have Soul Rings in their deck. That's how people. It's in every commander deck for the most part. So we're the exception to the rule, which is fine.
We're ready to play against it, but we don't play with it.
Exactly. We're ready to play against it. Doesn't mean I'm not gonna go ugh when you play it.
Yeah. But I like to get people a little bit when they say they're not playing fast mana and they play Soul Ring. Those are the same thing. Soul Ring is fast mana. So I get it that it's an auto include and it's in its own category, but it's the fast mana. It's like the best card in the format.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. It's a conversation that actually could be had. People just go yeah, but you knew what they meant. It's like, yeah, but they're still wrong.
Right. It's like that's fast mana.
It is.
Tell me it's not.
It is definitely fast mana.
Yeah, let's go to tutors. We're talking about more of the non-specific tutors, demonic tutor and vampiric tutor, or the best of the best, goated tutors like mystical, enlightened, and worldly tutor. They just kind of make the games more repetitive. It's not actually any card in your deck. It's not any creature in your deck. It's the best 6 creatures. It's the best removal. It's the best board wipe. It's the best proactive play. And you're going to see them over and over. So to me, it makes the game less. There's less variance in the game, and it speeds up games for sure.
Yeah, I think tutors are just really, really boring. It's something I tend to avoid in all of my decks. It's interesting. A long time ago, I had an Omnath deck, and it played only land tutors, but it saw the card fielded at every single game, and it became very boring. BZ has a deck that I really don't enjoy playing against right now that does the same thing. It's very much like that. It's a green-black Beladros deck that spams fielded at, and I don't enjoy playing against that deck because it doesn't feel like we're playing 100-card Singleton again. It feels like we're playing...
My companion is fielded dead.
You're playing companion fielded dead that ends up on the battlefield every single game, and I tried my best. I just built my Thalia Gitrog monster, and Fielded Dead is obviously a feature card of that deck. It's very, very good in that deck. I tried to avoid tutors, but I think I have 2 or 3.
I can't resist it.
Well, it's because they're such good land ramp cards, and I want to be playing them on my deck anyway. And I put other cool things in there like Maze of Ith to actually go and get and give myself advantage.
Yeah, I thought about that one too. Anyway.
All right, so let's move on to another category. These are combo cards. Now, these are cards that are all great, good, really strong cards, but we're not going to put them in our deck because when you play them, it's hard not to combo off and just win the game because these cards are so stinking good. First, Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar. Both of these cards, you have to if you include these in your deck, you have to exclude 7 other cards just because they're going to go infinite so easily.
They're ham sandwich cards. They combo off, these cards combo off with a ham sandwich. And one of our play group's new kind of mantras is hey, let's take out infinite combos. So it's really hard. You could accidentally combo off with any of these cards because they're just so powerful that we kind of have to avoid them, not necessarily because they're unfun or broken, but because they will just combo with the random cards we're playing.
I'll just give my opinion, not necessarily our whole play groups because I don't speak for everyone in our play group. I don't find combos very fun. I find one of the most anticlimactic ways for a game to end is those cards you mentioned before and infinite combos that come out of nowhere. Those 2 things are my least favorite way for games to end. They just feel... it feels like the air was let out of the game. It's just it was going so good. Boom. It's gone. And it's done. And it's over. That's how I feel personally.
The next one is Prairie Drake. If you've got any flicker effects that can repeatedly do this, you have infinite mana. So maybe this one and Great Whale and what are Palinchron, all those guys. Sometimes even Cloud of Fairies, they have to stay out for us because we don't want to go infinite.
I mean, and then you realize you've avoided all the infinite flicker stuff, but you're playing a blue-green deck that has Peregrine Drake and Eternal Witness. Oh, all of a sudden they have Ghostly Flicker and I win too.
Right, it's what are you going to do, not do that? I don't want you to not win. So it's you just take the win, you have it, and it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, there's no other way to put it, but yeah, it sucks. It is true. You're not going to see a Dual Caster Mage in my deck. I think Dual Caster Mage is bad. Unless you're comboing.
And then we just won't play it.
And I'm not going to play it if it's comboing. I'll just put Dual Caster Mage up in the bad category from before. I don't think this card is very good. I don't think it does nearly enough. I think it's a lot of mana to hold up. It's risky.
It's like Deceiver Exarch. It's not that good. Maybe it can be good if you shut down an Eldrazi, but it's there because it's half of Splinter Twin.
Yeah, and it's just and then Dual Caster Mage is this is... It may be something good to end up on the stack that I can copy.
You have no idea.
You have no idea. You can't rely on that. This card, I'm just not putting it in my deck. I think it's a bad card, but good if it combos,
which will make it unfun.
Which will make it unfun to us.
And then we have our slow cards. These are cards that slow the game down and are enjoyable / synergistic, but just don't gel with the fact that we all want to play the same amount of game, kind of similar to extra turns. Krark the Thumbless is one that we had done a video about and previously just completely missed. Krark the Thumbless creates coin flip triggers, which are time-consuming. They're really time-consuming triggers. Flipping a coin, looking at it, going, okay, heads, bouncing it or copying it, and then going through that. So Krark just, wow. It is making waves as one of the most miserable partners they ever made.
One of the most miserable cards ever made, yeah. There's also things like Chaos cards. And let's just talk about two very specific, awful ones. Scrambleverse. How about we randomly determine where every single permanent goes? That sounds fun, right?
Or we can draft all the permanents with Thieves Auction and mostly take all of our stuff back, except with the exception of like 2 things.
I think these are true of the worst cards ever printed in the history of Magic. They are stupid. They are unfun. They are dumb. And I know people really love the idea of like, I'm going to cause chaos, but it's like, these don't do anything. They don't give anyone an actual real advantage. They're just stupid.
You know what? They actually kind of violate at least our playgroup's mantra or our channel's mantra of like, build for fun, play to win. We don't find these fun, and they certainly will not win you a game.
They don't. These cards do not win you games. They're just bad and time consuming.
Yeah, throw Divine Intervention in there because it literally cannot win you the game.
Speaking of time consuming,
yeah,
take extra turns.
Time warps.
Expropriate. Yeah, I mean, expropriate and time stretch and extra turns. We talked about them not being fun, which they are. We're still going to put them in our not fun category. They also take a ton of time, especially things like time stretch and expropriate, which could take upwards of 2, 3, 4 extra turns. Is this possible? The fact that expropriate could take 2 extra turns and take 2 permanents is stupid.
Yes.
Who wants to deal with that?
Yes, this next one really, really brutal. Limdul's Vault. I would say if you want to know what I think of Limdul's Vault, there's actually an entire video in which that is one of the first cards we talk about. That's all the cards that we think are super slow and time consuming.
Yes, and we don't put them in our decks. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.